The sky had been crying for hours by the time I pulled up to the driveway. The late summer rain drummed against the windshield like restless fingers, erasing everything behind me. I stared at the garage door in the gloom, heart pounding with the same mix of dread and desire I always felt when I thought of him. My hand tightened around the keys, and I told myself I was only here to check the place, to see if everything was still in order. But deep down I knew I was lying to myself. I reached for the doorknob, cold steel against my palm, and stepped inside. The warm scent of aged cedar and familiar leather wrapped around me. It was like walking into a memory I shouldn't revisit. I waited there, standing in silence, listening to the fireplace crackle behind me, and prayed that the ghosts from last summer hadn't grown stronger in my absence. As I stepped forward, my boots scuffed against the hardwood, convincing me that someone was watching. My pulse surged. I could almost feel him before I saw him, leaning against the mantel, dark features lit by the dancing flames, eyes tracing each line of my face. That familiar weight settled in my chest, thick and bittersweet. "Emily," he said softly, voice low. I swallowed hard. "You came." "Of course." He didn't move. There was a tension between us that hadn't faded, though a year had passed. His presence was like a wound I couldn't forget. I took a small step forward, and he did too, mirroring my movement. His name was Ryan. He'd been my best friend before everything changed. We grew up together on this lakefront estate. Our families were neighbors, our childhood intertwined like the roots of the old oak out back. He was the one who taught me to ride a bike, held my hand when I was terrified of swimming in the deep water, carried me home when I slipped and fell. We were inseparable until last summer. We both reached for the same glass of red wine on the counter, fingers brushing, sparks igniting. I lifted it, surprising myself, and took a slow sip. The taste was rich, exactly how I remembered. He seemed to inhale along with me, leaning in close enough that I could feel his heat. "Thank you," I whispered. He let the silence stretch. The fire popped. Rain tapped like a nervous audience outside. "If you're only here for the house." "I'm not." I turned to face him finally, clenching my jaw as the memory of that night rushed back. The last night we'd shared. The rain had come then too, pounding against the windows as if the weather couldn't bear what we were doing. We'd moved too fast, abstained too long, whispered words in the dark while we stood on the dock, hearts racing, skin alive. "Touch me like you did last night," he'd breathed. I'd thought he meant it, but I also knew then that what we'd done could destroy everything. I swallowed the rest of my wine and set the glass down. "We can't undo it." He shook his head. "I know, but I wish we could." I shivered in the breeze, even though the fire burned bright behind him. "It's not just about last summer. I left because I needed distance. You were doing something you shouldn't have." He crouched and picked something up from the floor. It was a small envelope, white unfamiliar. "I found this in the kitchen last week," he said. I didn't open it. My breath caught. I recognized that stationery. My stomach clenched. "Open it." He tore it gently, pulling out a single sheet. The handwriting was elegant, unfamiliar, a shade too formal for my taste. "Tell her the truth, or I will." My knees buckled. I didn't sit. I dropped to them. Rain leaked through the windows, washing quiet tears down my cheeks. Everything I felt, danger, guilt, longing, coalesced into a sudden, intense ache. "Someone's watching us," Ryan said quietly, folding his arms. "Low rent, I think. They're playing mind games." I buried my face in my hands. "Not again. You know it won't end here." He knelt beside me, voice urgent. "We need to decide, stay out of it forever, or face whatever's coming." My mind reeled. A year ago I thought I'd escaped. I thought I'd found peace in the city. But the letter reminded me of everything I'd tried to bury: secrets, betrayal, fear. And that whisper, his voice in the dark, haunted me still. My words died in the echoing room. Ryan touched my shoulder. You don't have to hide anymore. I lifted my head, eyes meeting his. His gaze was steady, offering both comfort and challenge. I could walk back out that door, drive away, pretend I'd never been here. But I knew the storm wouldn't stop until we did something. We were in this together whether I wanted it or not. I stood, brushing rain-slick hair from my face. Show me everything. He nodded, stepping back. The quiet seemed swallowed by the house, every corner waiting to witness our next move. I realized then that despite the danger, I wanted him there. Not just as a frightened man looking over his shoulder, but as the only person I'd ever trusted completely. I walked past him to the stairs, reaching out to touch the banister. The wood was polished smooth, worn by hands who'd climbed countless times. The lake water beyond the windows lay flat and dark, the storm clouds reflected in its depths. "I'm not going to ask you to stay," he said, voice close behind me, "but I hope you do." I paused, hearing the sincerity in his words. "I want to stay." He exhaled as if a weight had lifted off his chest. We stood there, two souls tethered to a past that refused to let go. The fire crackled. The rain grew louder, rattling the window panes. "Then we begin," he said softly. "Tonight." I nodded, uncertain but determined. We had to unravel the truth. And if confronting that whisper meant reopening the wounds we'd tried to heal, then we'd bleed together. We headed toward the back room, the place where everything had changed. It smelled of stale wind and lost hope. I thought about what might come next and found myself wanting him to take my hand. I did. His fingers closed around mine without hesitation. We were ready to face the storm,